Automation now, please. Anyway, we've got to do a little bit of small talk while the numbers get up, I reckon.
Get the numbers up.
Get those numbers up. We'll tell you what the show's going to be about.
Get those numbers up.
You're regressing.
What's that?
You're regressing to a child.
No, I'm doing the. I was doing the emoji hand clap.
Oh, the emoji.
Get those numbers up. You know, the whole the woke clapping hands thing.
Okay. That's this way around.
What do you mean?
The hands are like over there, right? I was seeing the pray one when you did it like that.
Oh right, I see.
You know, that angle.
No, I just think that like stupid hand like clap is like some woke sort of I'm with her Hillary nonsense, which has bled into kind of University Blairite, meaningless, sort of grey, bilge, sludgy, kind of zombie-like, dead but still carrying on, you know, millennial neoliberalism. Isn't it? That's what they do. This is it. I don't have any politics. That's what they do.
Yeah, I don't mind the clap thing.
What's your favourite emoji?
My favourite emoji, I like the crying, laughing one. It's probably the one I use the most.
Hey, you can guess what mine is.
Which one? Oh, that one, the smirk. I also like this. I don't know what you call that. I suppose that's the okay with your. It's doing okay with your hand.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Why does that mean okay? Do you know what this means in Italian? It's quite rude.
what does it mean?
So you go like that.
Well, did you have
Yeah.
when you were a teenager, when you were in secondary school, that if you look at the circle below your waist, you get punched?
Well, I mean, if anybody tried to pull that shit with me, I just, you know.
Hard as nails.
No, there were kids who were really nasty, and if it was your birthday, you were going to walk home with like a fractured arm. But I mean, you're getting punched over that shit. You're kidding me? I mean, but also like I went to a grammar school, so it was so violent that.
A grammar school's more violent.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean,
Why?
you've not seen Lord of the Flies?
Yeah. Oh, is that what it's like?
It's kind of like, I guess it must be like public school, but like it's a little probably more. Well, my one was really bad. We had in our sixth form common room, we had a pole in the middle, and we used to talk about polling people. And this involved each person getting a limb, a leg and an arm each, 4 of you, and you'd ram them sort of bollocks first into a pole. And obviously they'd be recoiling in agony. That's happened to me many times, right?
My God.
Then there was a sofa in the corner, and it had like 2 years worth of like rubbish and like food waste. And it was called dunking.
But you get a sofa in grammar school?
Well, this is in the common room, right?
Oh, yeah, because you don't have a common room in like a comprehensive school doesn't have a common room.
Well, colleges have common rooms.
Like my sixth form college had a common room. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you're there till that age.
Yeah. And so like behind the sofa, there was like 2 years worth of refuse, rats and shit probably. And we used to have something called dunking, which is when you throw somebody behind there. Another one was we had like a hollow sofa settee in front of the television. And you could literally put somebody under there and just sit on top of them, and they'd be like squealing there for hours. That happened to me. I mean, in a way it was very egalitarian because we all kind of tormented each other.
Well, that's what they have in private school, isn't it? So it's sort of like egalitarian because you all go through being like you start off being a newbie, at which point you get like horrifically bullied, and then you go up the hierarchy when you're sort of like in final year, and then you get to demand all these sorts of privileges and basically be horrible to everyone.
Right. I mean, it's incredibly dysfunctional. I mean, I look at it as kind of funny because for whatever reason it didn't, the long-term impacts are negligible on me. I'm sure there are people out there that I've met a few people, and there were like bullies who were my friends or my acquaintances. Not bullies, but they were nasty people. And I've met people from our school. What's that noise? Is there a noise?
There was a noise, but I don't know what it was.
Gary, what's going on?
It was maybe a ringtone. Come on, tell your story. Tell your story.
I'm tired. I'm grouchy because I'm like I've already said, right? I'm living this lifestyle now of normal people. It happens to me now. I get grouchy. So there are kids I meet now, and they're like, they like with a sort of vehement hatred. They hate this person. I was like, he was a good guy. He was, played left back for the school team. He was good at pool, and he destroyed my life. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really bad. I didn't know that. I'm sorry. You should probably try and resolve that with them. Or they should try and resolve it with you.
When do you see people that went to your secondary school?
I'm from Bournemouth, aren't I? It's not a big place.
Oh, so when you go back there just for a few days, you'll see people in the street?
Every couple of years, you'll see somebody you weren't expecting to see, sure, yeah.
All right, let's get on to the issues of the day.
Go on.
The issues of the week.
The burning issues of the day.
We are going to go back to something we talked about on Monday, but because it's still a very live issue and there's still a lot to say, we're going to talk about the anti-Semitism crisis or controversy in the Labour Party. But we're going to talk about what's happened since Monday, but also the broader issues which surround that, what it tells us about the left, what it tells us about Labour's leadership, and how we can move forward from this period. We're also going to talk about some good news. Well, it was potential good news and then it didn't quite happen, which is John Woodcock was considering crossing the floor. Do you think it's going to happen, Aaron?
Well, Kevin Schofield, his best mate at Politics Home, reported it. So there must be some truth to it.
How do we know they're best friends? Did they go to Shed 7 together? Or was that a different...
I think they did, no? There's pictures of, there's some music festival. I'm sure if you input Kevin Schofield, John Woodcock onto Twitter, there's probably a tweet from Matt Zarb 2 years ago where he's like, these fucking melts. I think, they're quite buddy, pally. Michael Duggar as well. They're all mates. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think Kevin Schofield will make something up about John Woodcock. My suspicion is that John Woodcock told him something or said something might happen, and he's just, spilled the beans because he can't help. Schofield can't help himself. It's kind of funny.
Kevin Schofield ruins all the best surprises.
Yeah, I was on Sky today, and he was getting pull quotes from me, which looked terrible. He's like, Aaron Bastani says that Marx was a Jew. And it's like, which we're going to talk about later. And by the way, I've tweeted I had to tweet the whole video because then people know why I've said it. Because the other guy was saying, Oliver Cam from the Times, he's saying that there's parts of the left which, because of their universalist project, can't abide that there are remnants of, a society which want to remain within an ethnic or a religious or a traditional subgroup.
It's a strange argument he made,
and I was
it?
like, literally, this is not a token gesture. Literally, some of the leading leftists of the last 200 years were European Jews. Doesn't make any sense. So, I raised it for a reason. Anyway, Schofield pulled those things out of context to make me look like a wally. He's a weird guy.
Yeah, I saw that Oliver Cam argument he made. I wasn't expecting it because he made it quite articulately.
A very articulate guy.
Came across quite learned, but it's not the argument I normally hear which connects far left politics to anti-Semitism. This idea that it's the particularism of Judaism that makes left-wing people suspicious of it. I don't know why that wouldn't apply to any other cultural or ethnic religious group.
It's nonsense.
Yeah.
When you have 1933, the Nazis go all in with homosexuals, people with disabilities, gypsies, Bolsheviks, as they would call them, Jews. The point is they're all sort of put together in the same group, which is rootless cosmopolitans. They don't believe in flag, family, faith, as Blue Label would call it, or or blood and land. So actually, it's the polar opposite of what he was saying. And there's really not much of anti-Semitic leftism is quite. It was called socialism of fools. There's not much. Wasn't Karl Liebknecht? Wasn't he Jewish?
I don't know who Karl Liebknecht is. I'm sorry.
He's a German SDP politician. Anyway, Walter Benjamin was Jewish. This is Theodor Adorno. We're talking lots of people here. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about, quite frankly.
Ralph Miliband.
Ralph Miliband. Your boy Ralph Miliband. Your boy Ed Miliband. Your boy David Miliband. And who's the other Miliband brother?
There isn't another Miliband brother.
I'm kidding. Do you not remember that joke? There was a fourth Miliband brother.
It'd be a third Miliband brother.
Well, yeah, a fourth Miliband.
Fourth Miliband.
Sorry, this is like a sleep king again. Yeah, no, it was like some joke in the Poke or something.
Sounds good.
It was really funny.
We should get that back up.
At the time, it was totally viral.
All right, let's do an update of what's happened since we last spoke on Monday. So we can go through the demos that happened on Monday. There was the one which was #EnoughIsEnough, which was called by the British Board of Deputies and the Jewish Board of Deputies and the Jewish Leadership Council. They said that had about 1,500 people attending.
Really?
You never know what numbers are like. There were lots of Labour MPs, a few Tory MPs.
The attendance doesn't matter like that. This is the very leftist thing. Oh, the more people that turn up, the more important it is. It's like, how many people turned up to the Joe Cox Solidarity Vigil in Westminster? A couple of hundred. That doesn't mean it wasn't important. Anyway.
An aside.
No, I just don't like this kind of. It's a very leftist metric, isn't it? We're like, there were 100,000 people marching through London. I mean, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, that doesn't really determine the importance of something. Generally,
Yeah, although it does make it. It does. I mean, it demonstrates support, and especially if something's called on short notice, it sort of demonstrates the kind of network that.
Clearly, it's a huge embarrassment to the Labour Party. But I mean, if it was 200 people, it'd be hugely embarrassing and an indignity. If it was 2,000, it'd be an indignity. You know, I don't think. Yeah, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Okay. There was also a counter demo put on by the Jewish Voice for Labour. So they're a group that was started last year specifically because they thought the way that claims about anti-Semitism were being used in the Labour Party were of a political nature, which were intended to silence criticism of Israel.
Do you believe that?
And do I believe... I think they sometimes are, and I think they sometimes aren't.
Right.
So I think that that's going to be one of our big challenges is how, as a movement, do we build the infrastructure and the levels of consciousness where it's possible to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time, which is that there are some real anti-Semites in the Labour movement. There are some real dangerous anti-Semitic tropes that people can fall into, even if they're not anti-Semites.
Yeah.
But
Which is super common, right?
Yeah. But also that claims about anti-Semitism uncontroversially have been used to try and damage Corbyn's leadership by people who are politically opposed to him.
But what, in a way,
all those things can be true.
In a way, first of all, what's wrong with that? I mean, I've said that repeatedly, right? What you've just said there. But what's wrong with it when you consider A, it shouldn't really matter, it's immaterial because it still exists, right? Oh, it's being weaponized, well, fine, but it still exists. But also in politics, the whole point is to exploit the weakness or the perceived weakness of your opponent. So with the Tories, you know, it's probably not good that we're like, Theresa May can't finish a fucking speech. In the grand scheme of things, that kind of doesn't matter. But the perceived weakness of the Tories was the leadership, the fact that she is a useless politician, the fact that she doesn't really want to be there. Her idea of legacy is probably getting a good Brexit. Literally, that's all she'll be remembered. Everything else has been a car crash. You know, I mean, what's wrong with that in a sense? I mean, I'm coming around to the idea that even talking about it being weaponized, I mean, it's being weaponized by kind of 25 people who don't really matter anyway, and we should probably deal with it regardless. When it was 170-odd MPs saying this stuff, very different, right?
Well, I think the reason it matters is because for people who false claims are made about, and that will often happen to many people who are part of Palestine solidarity campaigns, and often happens to Jewish people who are part of pro-Palestine movements, and that's obviously incredibly painful for them.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, on a very broad level, false claims or claims which are made for purely political reasons. That's one of the reasons why many people on the Labour left are quite quick to close ranks, because they've seen that sort of allegations of anti-Semitism have been unjustly made. And now they assume that all allegations of anti-Semitism are unjustly made.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So in politics, you isolate the weakness of your opponent. But if the weakness of the Tories, for instance, was anti-Semitism, or if it was racism towards black people or homophobia, I mean, should we weaponise that? I mean, I would weaponise homophobia against the Tories, right?
Well, it depends if
we have, right?
It depends if it's real or fake, right? So, I mean, if would you fabricate homophobia or racism on the part of the Tories?
Yeah.
No, I think that would probably be, well, immoral to do that, but more it would muddy the waters. If it was found out that what you were doing was fabricating it, that's going to make people very suspicious of any moment when someone makes a claim that someone's homophobic or someone's racist.
Right.
And in the Labour Party over the last 2 years, there have been situations where claims of anti-Semitism have been made where it seems like they have been concocted out of very thin evidence and then weaponized for political purposes. So, I mean, you saw that on that Al Jazeera documentary, The Lobby, last year.
Yeah.
Which got some criticisms because of the tone. I think I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, and it did often have sort of music a bit like it was a thriller, when often quite normal things were going on.
Right.
There, like, lots of the stuff that they thought was really suspicious was the idea that there were connections between the Israeli embassy and Labour Friends of Israel. It's like, to be honest, that seems completely normal. I'd expect there to be connections between Cuba Solidarity Campaign and the Cuban embassy. But one interesting part of the documentary, and one troubling part really, was there was someone from Palestine Solidarity Campaign who'd gone to the Labour Friends of Israel stall at conference, And she'd been asking Joan Ryan, who's chair of Labour Friends of Israel.
Progress member, I believe, right?
Probably.
And just in terms of, we're just trying
Yeah,
to
but that's just from that.
make clear her politics more generally and how that they might,
Yeah, this woman was saying to her, you say you want a two-state solution, how are you actually going to concretely get there?
Yeah.
And basically, I mean, what she was challenging is to say, so long as you support, or so long as you don't challenge the current policies of the Israeli government in terms of settlements, there's no point in you saying there's going to be a two-state solution.
Which is true.
And Joan Ryan was basically saying, well, it's not my job to say that. And then this woman said, well, to be honest, I mean, you're an organisation with quite a lot of money and power.
Yeah.
And, she said, I know someone whose son was in Labour Friends of Israel, and that helped him get a good job at Oxford University. So this idea that it's sort of like not your job to answer these difficult questions seems a bit much. We know that you can answer these questions.
An interesting allegation was I saw, Shlomo Sand.
Yeah.
Emeritus professor, I believe, at the University of Tel Aviv, very respected historian, invention of the Land of Israel, has sold, I think several 100,000 copies in every language. He's obviously published subsequent books, a scholar in the kind of shadow of a guy called Renan, a French historian in the 19th century. He's a fantastic scholar, very good empirical work, he is lambasted at home. He's a Jew. He's an Israeli. And he just talks about, the formulation of the Jewish people as a cultural category, a political category in the 5th, 6th century. And I saw some people, like you say, on Twitter saying, oh, this guy's an anti-Semite. And you think, this is insane. The man is an emeritus professor at the University of Tel Aviv.
Well, what happened at the end of this is that Joan Ryan, when this woman's walked away, Joan Ryan's saying, and she was saying that that if people involved in this organisation can get jobs in the city and can get jobs in banks, that's an anti-Semitic trope. And the woman hadn't said that. And the next day...
That's very naughty.
The next day it ends up in the papers, that there's been these anti-Semitic attacks on the Labour Friends of Israel stall. Yeah. This woman's very shocked when a couple of weeks down the line she gets a letter from compliance unit saying sort of she's been suspended. Yeah. And it's this sort of like carelessness on the part of Jo Ryan there.
Well, she's an MP, so she absolutely should not be doing that.
Yeah. And the only reason...
We should have very high standards for these people.
The only reason that probably that woman didn't have anti-Semitism tarnishing her name forever was the fact that there was an undercover journalist who was filming all of this. So I think there has been a lot of irresponsibility about this. Yeah. And for an account of this, Jamie Stone-Weiner's pieces are the forensic
Can we get this up?
The other one was, so Jamie Stone-Weiner was talking about at last year's Labour Party conference, and he was talking about all these different articles where they basically made it sound like it was the Nuremberg rally. And there's people like Richard Angel being quoted saying, at this conference, it basically seems like it's up for debate whether the Holocaust happened.
No.
And
where's this?
It's all in this second Jamie Stone-Weiner piece from his blog.
Get the link up. I'll talk nonsense for half a minute, and then you can get the link up, and then Gary can pull it up. That's amazing. I mean, there is a lot of bad faith around this stuff.
And Jamie Stone-Weiner looks into it, and what happened was there was one fringe event for an organisation called Free Speech for Israel, where a Jewish Israeli guy was talking. He got asked a question from the audience, which the recording we couldn't tell, so we're not sure what it was. And he said, I don't think anything should be off limits that we can talk about. And then he said, Holocaust, yes or no. And then a bunch of other things. Probably slightly inappropriate thing. It's potentially a careless use of language, but to then sort of blow that up into this idea that Labour members are all now discussing whether or not the Holocaust happened it muddies the water, let's say that.
Have we got this up? This guy's article. Is it on Open Democracy? Is this the one here? We've got something.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
What's on his own website?
Yeah, he's got a WordPress.
Hey, look, if it's this good, what's it doing? This should be on NavaraMedia.com, Michael.
Yeah, we should have got it, shouldn't we?
This is great. So what's the title?
It's called Labour Conference or Nuremberg Rally, Assessing the Evidence.
Come on. Grow up. Grow up. Is this really necessary? A good rally with lots of people and lots of energy is not Nuremberg, okay? You weren't saying that when it was, Neil Kinnock in 1992 going, we're all right!
No, but no one called it the Nuremberg. That's his headline to say sort of like all the reporting from it made it seem like it was a Nuremberg rally, whereas actually there's very little evidence behind any of these different claims. But I mean, I suppose that was the qualification of the idea that many allegations have been concocted. There's no point in rewriting history and suggesting they haven't. But also, many allegations of anti-Semitism are real, and anti-Semitism is a real problem on the left.
Yeah.
That people need to be educated about.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about how we need more political education.
I've been doing it for a long time. It's why I wanted an elected general secretary.
What do you think? How do you think that would help?
I just think more broadly, we want a culture of democratic empowerment, self-improvement. You know, the working class movement in this country, in many countries, in fact, you know, the turn of the 19th century was marked by the desire to self-improve, self-improvement societies. The temperance movement, Keir Hardie, the founder of Labour, ostensibly, came out of precisely that, the temperance movement, the idea that you can improve your condition, improve yourself. Of course, you need broader social change as well. You need to undertake collective action to improve working conditions, get the 8-hour week, get social reforms. But there was also this emphasis on improving yourself as socialists. And I think we've lost that, actually. And I think that a major test of the success of this project, not just for the next 1 or 2 years, the next 10, 20 years, is the extent to which we can renew those ideas around self-improvement, workers' improvement, self-education, create the institutions to do it, create the resources to do it, create the networks to do it. And at present, clearly the only organisation that's capable of doing that is the Labour Party. It has a turnover of more than £50 million a year. Every CLP has a political education officer. What are they doing? And it's not their fault. It's a voluntary position. There's no money available. They should be given trainings by a central party office. They should have, you know, a 4-weekend schedule. They get a qualification, and it should be homophobia, sexism, anti-Semitism, racism, how to moderate a meeting, how to deal with conflict resolution, you know, all sorts of things. And these are skills actually that are completely lacking in the Labour Party. You go to meetings, branch meetings, CLP meetings, some of them are awful. There are some people that think you need to have 2 hours over the most minor, you know, broadly irrelevant sort of issues. So, yeah, like I say, there are many skills we need to build on the left, not just learning new things, but teaching people how to teach other people to do things, almost meta-learning, right? How to teach other people to become teachers, how to teach other people to become persuaders, how to teach other people to engage in, you know, a rational, logical conversation, how to, like I say, moderate meetings and so on. So, yeah, these are all things we need to do. And guess what? It would cost millions of pounds, but we have that money. And right now, well, or at least under Ian McNichol, it did fuck all. It did fuck all. Typical Labour approach is to give all the money, have a relatively flat managerial. All the money basically goes to like fucking 80% of these managers, right? That's not how we should be doing things. We should be trying to get, you know, I think the SDP at one point, the German Social Democratic Party, had 10,000 staffers at one point, paid activists up and down the country. That's what we need to have.
I want to be more specific about that when I was talking about Richard Angel and Holocaust denial, because I don't think what I said wasn't worse than what you actually said, but, you know, it's good to be in the realms of precision, isn't it? So what was said that created the controversy was, as part of a Q&A, this guy called Miko Peled, who's not a Labour Party member, and said later in the talk that obviously 100% absolutely the Holocaust happened. This guy's not a Holocaust denier. As part of a presentation, he was asked a question about free speech, and he said, this is about free speech. It's about the freedom to criticise and to discuss every issue, whether it's the Holocaust, yes or no, whether it's Palestine, the liberation, I mean the entire spectrum. There should be no limits on the discussion. So,
Do you agree with that?
I don't have particularly strong... I mean, in terms of should it be part of polite... I don't think there's any reason for anyone to question whether or not the Holocaust happened. You know, if anyone posts on their... So we'll talk about it slightly later, but someone who's just been suspended from council elections, he put up on Facebook an article saying Red Cross evidence that the Holocaust never happened. And his defense was, you know, I post loads of articles on my Facebook to start discussion.
Yeah.
It's like, that's stupid. There's no reason to post that on your Facebook to start discussion. I think it depends on what as Jamie Stone-Weiner says, we don't know what the question was that was asked here. If the question is about the law, then in some countries it is illegal to question the Holocaust. I'm pretty sure it's not illegal in this country.
It's not legal in this country.
Yeah, so Holocaust denial is in many countries in the continent.
Okay,
it's
here's
illegal.
a question. Hope Not Hate, maybe we should pull this up. Hope Not Hate wants to basically get Amazon to ban, I think, the sale of, you know, far-right literature. I have read bits of Mein Kampf, right? obviously as a historical document of somebody who really was very important in the 20th century. You know, I've read, as part of my university degree, I read, you know, various thinkers in the late 19th century who were antecedents to fascism, right? Eugenicism, racism. I read about them. Now, from what I understand about what Hope Not Hate is saying is that those kinds of literature shouldn't be freely available. And again, I just think this is really, really dangerous. I actually think we need to teach as many young people as possible about these ideas and where they come from. Because, look, they aren't a reality. That's the point. They were socially contingent. They were formed within a particular context. What was that context? It was a sense amongst Europeans that they were, you know, in civilizational decline at the end of the 19th century for a range of reasons we've gone over many times before. It also gave birth to the rise of modernism, German expressionism. And when you get that failed liberal cosmopolitan project with the Great Depression, and it comes up against these new forms of art, you're looking very... Your face went very strange there, Michael.
I was looking at the actual quotes that were made by all these mainstream people. Mainstream people? Yeah, so they've said... So in the... He's... You could have finished your point.
Yeah, but you don't make faces, Michael. I've had no sleep. Normally I'm a pro. I don't know what's going on. I've had 3 hours sleep.
So... Jamie Stone-Wine is getting all these different...
On the comments, there's like, you know, somebody commenting like, we're going to arrest Bastani.
So the Board of Deputies referred to those who have maliciously questioned the historical record of the Holocaust. Richard Angel says there has become this dialogue throughout this conference that there was a question mark about the Holocaust. Someone from the Holocaust Educational Tract saying it's shocking to see the Holocaust once again called into question. So it's sort of... It's been taken out of context, basically, and... has the effect that there's sort of an over-dramatization of what's gone on that makes people kind of suspicious of this kind of reporting.
Can I just say something quickly? There's a question from Your Politics on the comments. Get involved in the comments, by the way, if you're watching. What do you think about Adam Curtis' idea that the left is failing to present a viable, attractive and workable alternative to the state of, quote, hyper-normalization that society has settled into? I don't really rate Adam Curtis very much.
I didn't actually watch that documentary.
But here's an alternative for you. 4 words, fully automated, luxury communism. It's available in September, all good bookshops. I will be available, of course, for interviews and speaking events. You can get in touch with Verso Books. But I just thought I'd, you know, put that in there. But being serious, I mean, come on.
What do you think about Tommy Robinson getting banned from Twitter?
You know, the argument is that it's a private organisation and they can do what they want on their platform. But I don't buy that argument. Lots of people say it. Because Twitter, Facebook, Gmail have now become effectively forms of public infrastructure. So I don't actually think that works. If you're forbidden from YouTube, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram, like, you know, then basically you're being excluded from the agora, so to speak. So I don't agree with it. I don't think he should be platformed on the BBC. But the idea that he shouldn't have the ability to publish his own opinions, I mean, I would disagree with that. But I don't think that a public service broadcaster whose remit is to inform, educate and entertain should give him a platform either. But, you know, it's like all things in life that really matter and are really important, it's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Would you?
Yeah, I think you're right that it shouldn't... I think it's a problem that at the moment it's currently up to Twitter who they get rid of. So there's not much accountability there. I think if you are going to keep a particular opinion or voice out of public discourse, you need to have some pretty clear rules that are democratically decided. And it can't just be based on the company policy of Twitter or Facebook or Google. I think it's probably a slippery slope.
Would you ban Mein Kampf?
I mean, no one's questioning that. Like, as a historical document, don't people study it at university?
Hope Not Hate is saying it shouldn't be available on Amazon.
Oh, it should only be available to people studying history.
No, their argument was it shouldn't be available in these, like, you know, easily accessible booksellers. And the point is, well, should it only be available then in, like, sort of niche, small publishers? Where do you sort of draw the line? And of course, then it becomes the Samizdat kind of underground literature. You obviously never get rid of it. And I don't buy the argument necessarily from liberals, you know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. But at the same time, you know, that impulse to extremist politics, racist politics, in a sense, it's a natural outgrowth of what happens when economic systems, sort of decline, and they come up against a sense of grievance, especially when it's historically kind of, situated. And the idea that actually, democratic representation doesn't mean very much. And that's kind of where we are right now. And so when we're talking, and this is what's really bugged me actually about the anti-Semitism debate, are Labour anti-Semitic? The Italian Lega, a former neo-fascist organisation, are about to enter into a government in that country. They are legitimate anti-Semites. They are legitimate fascists, okay? The Hungarian government are legitimate, far-right people, very nasty people. And actually, there's a party to the right of them, which is the country's third largest party, or maybe second largest party, in fact. So you've got Fidesz and you've got Jobbik. So, two of the three largest parties in Hungary, far-right organisations. I think recently I saw a survey, maybe it was today, 1 in 5 people in certain Central and Eastern European countries view Jewish citizens from their country as being less than them. So they don't view equality under the law as, needing to be extended to Jewish people. So we've got big problems here, right? And anti-Semitism, as we'll talk about maybe a little bit later on, although I'd like to move on in a sec. We've got some beers.
Thank you, Gary.
We've got some beers. Cheers. Well, I'm going on BBC This Week later to talk to Michael Portillo. Michael Portillo.
Is it pronounced Portillo?
Well, it is in Spanish, right? I'm going to wind him up and go, Michael Portillo. Portillo, as you'd say in Argentine, right? Portillo. And Liz Kendall. And I'll be on there with Dr. Robert Winston later on. So it's good to,
with the moustache.
Crack open the beers now. Yeah, brief talk about all this stuff, right? But anyway, what I was going to say was anti-Semitism, for us, it might be like, look, the Holocaust was 70 years ago. Of course, it was terrible. 6 million people died, but it was a long time ago. But the reality is that it was the culmination, effectively, of 1,000 years of enmity and hatred. Anti-Semitism can be traced back to the 7th century, actually. But in Europe, it gets going really in the 11th century. And, even I think in the 1290s in this country, Jews were, they were thrown out by King Edward. We have no record really of Jewish life in England for another 200 years. During the Black Death, across Europe, Jews were persecuted, and they were, subject to claims of, they were poisoning wells. They were purposefully spreading this disease to the extent where in, I think, Mainz, 5,000-6,000 Jewish people were killed in that city's ghetto in Germany. In Strasbourg, 1,000 Jews were burnt to death because they were worried they'd spread the plague to that city. Hadn't even reached Strasbourg, right? Then, of course, you go on. The Jew of Malta, Christopher Marlowe, Barabbas, the first psychopath of English literature. Even Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales. Chaucer's, he's kind of seen as a nice guy normally. Chaucer has some anti-Semitic stuff in the Canterbury Tales. He talks about, there's a story, this young woman tells a story of a young Christian child in an Asian city, and he had the temerity to sing a hymn through the Jewish quarter, and they kill him. And then you've got The Merchant of Venice. You've got all these literary representations of how evil Jewish people are. You've got all these pogroms. You've got all these persecutions, these exclusions, these massacres. It's 1,000 years old. So yeah, on the one hand, a lot of this stuff can seem kind of silly because clearly, and maybe people might not like this, clearly anti-Semitism in terms of the average, we can't identify the average Jewish person unless they're Hasidic, for instance, right? Or they're a kind of observant religious community. You can't identify them in the street like you would say an Islamic person, generally speaking, right? Or let's just say a black person. That's the easiest example, right? They're racialized very differently. If they want to apply for a job and they have a name like Ben Cohen, the average person, they're not going to be discriminated against like somebody who's black with an Arab name. We know that. But it's very, very different, right? Anti-Semitism, like I said, is 1,000 years old. And when it gets going, history tells us it really fucking gets going, right? So that's why we need to take it very, very, very seriously. The reason why I hadn't taken it as seriously as I should have, we were talking about this before we started, right? Was that for me, yes, there was clear evidence of online cranks who are clearly anti-Semitic. That's the case for all parties, right? That's just the nature of digital culture. People say, oh, this is a problem on the left. Okay, well, maybe... But if you can identify they're a Labour member, I'll help you throw them out, right? Which very rarely happened. But then, like for me, the mural was like a realization moment, and because I saw the mural and I was like, well, this is clearly an anti-Semitic mural. It's fucking mad. And Jeremy Corbyn had kind of commented on it. Okay, we can give it a pass, give it the benefit of the doubt. And then a spokesperson talks about freedom of speech, and you think, fuck me, come on. And I can't defend this. So when I can't defend it, well, why can't I defend it? It's anti-Semitic. So that's when it clicked for me.
Yeah, I think the response, this has been the first time where the responses from the leadership have been sort of incontrovertibly lacking. Although I think they're, day by day, they're improving. What do you think?
Do you think they're good enough? I'm not in the game of bashing Jeremy Corbyn. This really matters. This really matters to the success of the project.
So I think the letter they published on Monday was really good.
Right.
I think what was good about that is that he took some personal responsibility, that he talked specifically about what anti-Semitism is on the left, because I think lots of people will be quite tired of hearing Jeremy Corbyn saying, I'm opposed to all forms of anti-Semitism, because it's a platitude. What does that mean? Obviously, anti-Semites aren't welcome in the party. But if what's in question among the members of your party is, or among some people on the fringes of your party, is what does and doesn't count as anti-Semitism. So if there are people in your party who are saying that mural is not anti-Semitic, then you saying anti-Semitism is bad is kind of meaningless. What you have to do is explain what is anti-Semitism, where it emerges in the Labour Party, and how you're going to stamp it out. And given that it's taken a while, and that not everyone's wise about everything, and I think he could quite easily say, yeah, I hadn't actually considered enough, sort of like how people in the Jewish community can feel threatened by a particular type of discourse, and I should have been more attentive. And from now on, I'm going to take personal leadership to make sure that this kind of discourse and commentary is stamped out.
Yeah, I mean the mural itself, right? Yeah, there's these 6 elderly men playing Monopoly on the backs of the global working class. Okay, that's one thing. It's an anti-Semitic trope. Above it is the Eye of Providence. This kind of Masonic symbol. Again, very the Zeitgeist movement. They love this. It's on the dollar. It's the Eye of Horus. It was in Phoenician culture. It was an Egyptian culture. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? It's in Iran, it's like good luck. My dad, he puts it on his door. It's on his fucking garage. Is he a Mason? No. Then there was the left of it, somebody with a placard saying the New World Order. And I just thought, why is the leader of the Labour Party involved in this shit? Are you kidding me? Like, it's not just bad politics. Like, because, there are some, like Theresa May, I think, has got bad politics, but it's internally coherent. Like, it's not like a fucking fantasy land. It's not like something out of World of Warcraft, which is what this shit is. And then I looked at the other guys' murals. Maybe actually, you can talk in a sec. I'll pull some up. Mir One's murals, I mean, technically they're very good, but the content, wow. He's a very interesting guy. And then he did an article once, and he was talking about, wait for it, Bitcoin. And he said, hey, well, cryptocurrency means we can have, I'm not making this up. Bitcoin means we can have decentralized money. Maybe one day we can have decentralized people. What the fuck is a decentralized person? What are you talking about? What are you doing? Whatever it is you're doing, smoking, drinking, taking some pills, whatever, stop doing it. Stop doing it. Go out to the woods, do a bit of exercise, chill out, read some books. Stop watching stuff on YouTube, except Novara Media, novaramedia.com. Here we go.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, look.
Bring that back.
No. They're all like this. They are all like, literally all of them are like this. Get this? You're laughing. They're laughing next door. Those are the good ones. The United Snakes of America.
No, is that what you're not? Wow.
Yeah, and you know what I thought would have topped this one, and I said it last week, if you can get that back? The United Snakes of America. Here we go. Imagine if it said, the only thing that would top this, Margaret Thatcher literally looks nothing like that. The United Snake KKKES. If it had a KKK, then I'd be like, this guy really... Look, there's a fucking alien there!
Sell your soul.
There's an alien there! Why is Jeremy Corbyn commenting on the art of a guy who puts aliens into his political commentary?
Oh, and that eye again.
Something's gone really wrong here.
Yeah. Let's go to the more abstract question of So this is obviously like the extreme end of conspiracy theories. Like this guy's obviously got a lot of anti-Semitic strains in his art, but also from interviews from his beliefs. It also moves into the Illuminati and snakes and lizards and aliens, apparently.
There's a fucking alien!
But what do...
What's going on?
He's
We're materialists. I'm a Marxist. Aliens, are you kidding me?
maybe he liked the colours. But there's a deeper argument that this whole idea of looking at politics as an elite and the people, sort of like a personified enemy, be it the bankers or the Tories or global financial institutions, has a tendency towards leaking into conspiratorial thinking and leaking into especially anti-Semitism if all those elites are personified as Jews, as it was in Nazi Germany and as it is in many of these conspiracy theories. Yeah. Do you think that should give us pause for thought when we talk in populist languages about elites and the people? There was an argument in the New Statesman drawing on Bastani that said we should instead talk about relationships and we should talk about the structure of capitalism, not people at the top. We shouldn't personify the
Give me a break.
relations
Is this your boy
productions.
Matt Bolton?
It is.
The man who said that Owen Smith would save social democracy. Come on. Not even Owen Smith believed that. Are you kidding me? Steak and Spotify will save the welfare state. Come on. No. I mean, there's a thing called sociology. It's an interesting subject. It was created around 150 years ago. And what it says is actually that social cleavages are in themselves objective things, right? And sort of delimiting a collective we and them is like the beginnings of any meaningful politics. Feminism. We are collectively women. We are oppressed in this way. These are the people that do it, okay? Black civil rights, homophobia, you name it. I mean, the point is they're based around sociological cleavages. Nobody goes, oh, in terms of feminism, hey, it's about like the patriarchy, not individual men. Even though there's guys beating the shit out of you, it's not about individual men. I mean, who would say that? You'd have to be a fucking idiot. So what I say to Matt Bolton, my boy, is that there's a thing called sociology.
So you're not into the Bastani argument either? You read that piece?
Yeah, no, okay, so here, I'll stop being silly. There is some veracity to it in so much as anti-Semitism, and actually in the Middle East, the figure of the Armenian plays a similar role in places like Iran and Turkey. Unsurprisingly, far more in Turkey actually. 1.5 million Armenians died in a genocide there at the turn of the 20th century. And they're viewed as financiers, untrustworthy, outside of the formal polity, not really, in the fifth column. And
it's because they're rootless, they represent international capital.
Yeah, exactly.
And his idea is that it's seen as abstract value as opposed to concrete production.
The thing is, for instance, racism in the United States, based upon presumptions of racial inferiority of black people, rests upon the presumption they're inferior. They should be subordinate to. They should submit. They should genuflect, which means kneel down. I learned that word a couple of years ago. I love that word. They should kneel down. They should prostrate themselves in front of you, right? Anti-Semitism is quite unique because it asserts that, in fact, we are being subordinated to these people. They are our masters. It's very rare in that respect. So what it does is, almost like I say, quite uniquely, along with anti-Armenian sentiment, is it dovetails pretty well, actually, with, yes, left populism. But that isn't a reason to jettison left populism. It's a reason to deal with anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I think the argument that... I mean, for a long time, the left talked about just capitalism as an abstract thing, and it was always anti-capitalist, and it didn't have any traction whatsoever. Then we all learnt about populism, the idea that you have to personify an enemy and you have to create a collective, common people. Otherwise, it's very difficult to fight. It's very difficult to fight a battle against a very abstract thing.
It's literally never happened in the history of humanity.
And there are people who are exploiting us. It's just very important that we don't racialize that category of people. So I think this idea that we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater is not particularly credible.
And they still choose to do it, right? Yes, capitalists are in competition with one another. That, by the way, is what drives competition, because they compete with one another. Otherwise, if they don't compete with one another, they go out of business. That tends to depress the cost of labour. It means they introduce labour-saving innovations. It means productivity improves. It means they create new products for consumers. So it's responsible for like the good and the bad stuff of capitalism, right? But at the same time, Engels didn't do it. Engels gave all his fucking money to Karl Marx. So the idea is like this impersonal structure where people don't do anything and humans aren't really variables in the situation. It's like, well, if one German industrialist who had some factories in Manchester and liked champagne and horses, and by the way, was sleeping with an Irish maid called Mary Burns, who also is a very interesting woman historically, then surely like people can get out of the structure because they're agents, and in the long term, they can reset the structure. I don't quite understand what therefore is the agent of change. In Marx, we make history, if not under the conditions of our own making. So who's the we? Who's the we, Matt Bolton? Who's the we? There's got to be a we. That's the point. You need a cleavage.
Yep, fine.
We need a cleavage.
I mean,
sociology.
I think
it exists.
We need both. I think. I mean, I do.
Of course,
think,
we need both.
So one thing that I think happened with the Corbyn movement is that because it didn't sort of grow out of any institutionalized mode of doing politics in the way that in the 20th century socialism often came out of the trade union movement, which came with it sort of like institutions that did think in a structural way, and it was political education was kind of built into it.
Right.
And because the Corbyn movement emerged without any of that, and because the moment it arrived, it had to get into very personalized attacks between the establishment and the newcomers, often on a local level as well.
True.
So, and interestingly, actually, in lots of constituencies, the biggest flare-up is about anti-Semitism, and it tends to be between anti-Zionist Jews and non-anti. Yeah. So
in our constituency, like this has never been raised.
It was a huge issue in one of my constituencies, Dulwich and West Norwood, and it often flared up over conversations about the definition of anti-Semitism.
Right.
Because there's many of the Palestine solidarity activists, all the most vocal ones I know in the Labour Party are also Jewish, who are very concerned that anti-Semitism is used to silence pro-Palestine voices. And then there's many people who felt that sort of by arguing against the adoption of this definition of anti-Semitism, people were being anti-Semitic or legitimizing anti-Semitism. And because it sort of cut right down the party in terms of left and right, both sides majority Jewish, but sort of like it was really structured in terms of the battle between left and right in the party. It really tied up that whole debate into a debate between two sides, between two different people, instead of a debate about ideas, which has happened a lot in the party. Every contentious issue becomes a battle between two groups of people, which in part has been necessary. I mean, it's very important that the left wouldn't have won many CLPs if it wasn't disciplined, didn't close ranks, and didn't sort of organise as a group against an opposing group.
Yeah.
But it has some odd effects when it comes to people's understanding of politics.
Before we move on, because we're going to move on, we haven't got that long, right? We're going to talk about Jihadi John. No, sorry, we're going to talk about a Labour MP. It's a different guy. I thought we were going to talk about that terrorist a couple of months ago who died. We're going to talk about somebody else.
We won't. Yeah,
sorry,
we've already talked about enough serious things.
Brain freeze. I've just not slept enough. Before we do that, there was echoes of that in the whole General Secretary debate, right? So, we were saying that it would be good to have a General Secretary who's elected. I literally don't care who it is. I do care who it is. I want them to be left wing. If Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell said, I want it to be Jenny Formby, fine. You got my vote. That's all it takes. But the point is, I have major misgivings around the way that the Labour Party is structured. And I think we will need mandatory selection, as we're now seeing again. And I'm not talking about the people talking about anti-Semitism. I'm talking about, for instance, Owen Smith around the Article 50 stuff, John Woodcock, as we're about to talk about. We need major changes. And if you sort of raise that conversation, it was always like, almost like rather, oh, why are you saying this? Wrecker, splitting it, splitting. It's like, Jenny Formby's going to win. I think she won 27-2 or something. She's going to win. It's like, oh, you'll split the vote. Well, it's like, it's an elimination thing, so that literally can't happen. And I was kind of surprised, and in a way I felt a bit sad that there wasn't the possibility of an intellectual debate around whether or not, and I see the merits, by the way, of an argument which says we shouldn't have an elected General Secretary. I was like, if we can't have this debate, something's gone really badly wrong. Really, really badly wrong. And it doesn't bode well for the future.
I mean, what really, this should be the last thing we say on this issue, but what really intensifies that sort of tension and confusion and the way in which a struggle between two sides leads to bad politics or leads to weird politics is that there's no honest broker. So no one feels like they can get information from a source which they trust, which is accepted as having some sort of basis in evidence and not being pure propaganda. So you've got one side who think that everything written in the BBC and written in the Times is fake. And one of the reasons is that lots of the things that have been written in the Times are complete nonsense and fabrications.
They're briefed by people who have an agenda against Corbyn who make stuff up.
So it's reasonable for people on the left to think that they can't believe everything in the Times. And then they've often seen things written in the Canary and the Squawk Box, which, one, fit with their beliefs, but two, were closer to the truth than what was written in the Times that week. And
let's take Squawk Box. Squawk Box has, in terms of the last 2 years of the Labour Party, if you wanted to know what was really going on in the Labour Party, far more useful than the BBC. Far more useful.
But it doesn't present... It's still... I mean, there's no way that that's going to be seen as an honest broker by people on both sides of the party, because it only ever... It's a very ideological organ.
And it doesn't say otherwise, right?
Yeah. But the problem is that because all we have is ideological organs, it's very difficult for people to be working on the same assumptions and on the same basis of information as each other.
Before we move on to WoodLol, I just want to say to you guys, hit the subscribe button. We've got 15k subscribers. We bet the house on Facebook. Zuckerberg changed the algorithm. We now want to go big on YouTube Live. We just do. We want to be doing...
I think YouTube's better. The community is stronger.
You know, we do this for you guys. Somebody said, is Aaron miffed by the unfollow? Actually, no. I raised that for reasons which weren't personal, but rather political, but let's not go there. We do this for you guys. It's all about the community. So anyway, subscribe, get the notifications bell just on the side, because we want to build up YouTube. And if you think we do a great job, we've got all the best podcasts. We've got The Lockdown, we've got TyskySour, we've got Navarra FM, we've got The Explainers, we've got the articles. If you think, wow, all this great value I'm getting from Navarra Media, navarramedia.com, at Navarra Media on Twitter, why don't you go to support.navarramedia.com and make some kind of financial donation? It can be one-off, it can be ongoing, subscription, so to speak. We would really appreciate it, because tomorrow, Gary and I are going to IKEA, and we're going to start finishing this place, but we can't do it for free. So it would be really appreciated. Like I say, subscribe, hit the notification button. If you want, right now, no really, press pause, do it right now. Go to support.navarramedia.com. Help us build a new media for different politics, because we want to talk about big ideas. We want to be informative. We want to be entertaining. To do it properly takes money. So thank you. Michael, WoodLol.
WoodLol.
Yeah.
John Woodcock.
Yeah.
MP for...
Go on.
Well, he's MP for lots of dictators around the world, isn't he, really?
The honourable member for the AKP.
Doesn't he back Saudi Arabia as well? Or is it mainly just Erdogan?
I think it's mostly Erdogan.
Maybe it's just Erdogan.
That's really... I mean, Saudi Arabia is really bad. Even there's only one or two Tories who actually back Saudi Arabia.
I'm going to Google John Woodcock, Saudi Arabia.
No. He's Erdogan.
It's all Erdogan, is it?
He's an Erdogan stan. He's friends with Erdogan's son-in-law, who's also the oil minister, who also bought oil from ISIS and helped fund terrorism. But then John Woodcock has the temerity to say Jeremy Corbyn's bad for national security, when he's literally pals with a guy who funded ISIS. I mean, wow. Where's that story, by the way? I mean, isn't that a front page story anywhere? It should be. Go on, Michael.
I think John Woodcock does defend Saudi bombing in Yemen.
Yeah, but that's because it's a good old British bombers. No, it's British jobs, right?
Yeah.
Surely he doesn't back the fucking Saudi regime. Surely.
I should have read this article before we went on air. Anyway, we'll tweet afterwards whether or not John Woodcock does actually like the Saudis. We cannot confirm while we're currently on air. Anyway, he has said he might cross the floor in disgust. Jeremy Corbyn, not cross the floor, actually. He said he's just resigned the whip, which I'd be absolutely fine with. John Woodcock is my least favourite MP. He's an awful person. Before the general election, he said that even if Labour had the most MPs, he wouldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn to be PM. He'd block Jeremy Corbyn. There's no reason why he should be in the party. And And yeah, he tends to just stand up for horrible things.
He transcends party boundaries in a way, I think. He doesn't make any sense to me. Like Chris Leslie, Chuck Rumina, they like make sense to me.
Well, I think he is just a lobbyist of the arms industry. So whereas Chuck Rumina and people like that, they have an agenda, right? They have ambitions to be politicians, about, you know, like they really want to be leaders of the country, and Chuck Rumina always in his like ham-fisted way is trying to carve out what is going to be his hegemonic coalition in Britain. Like, is it going to be the Remainer one? Is it going to be the Remainers that don't like immigration? Is it going to be...
Change from week to week.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, freedom of movement might not mean freedom of movement.
Whereas John Woodcock is kind of like a lobbyist for the arms industry in Parliament. But in the same week that he said he's going to resign the whip, we can watch a video of him castigating Jeremy Corbyn in Parliament, which does make one think that he might have crossed the floor already. So that is the last link in the Google Doc, Gary. Can we get that up?
Let's see. John Woodcock, penis, penis, penis.
I've been a robust critic of the actions of the Russian government for more than 20 years. I was opposing, Madam Deputy Speaker, the abuse that was going on in Chechnya by Russian forces, the manipulation of elections, the oppression of LGBT rights, and the dodgy laundering by Russian oligarchs of money through London.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way, and I was not intending to intervene in this, but I cannot actually let that remark go by. I've sat here reading his article in the Morning Star after Russia annexed part of Ukraine, where the strongest criticism he makes there is, on Ukraine, I would not condone Russian behaviour or expansion, but it is not unprovoked. And then into the usual criticism of the US and NATO and UK policy. It's just not true, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his usual helpful intervention. Thank you very much.
Across the floor. Just good Williamson moment.
He's
like pointing at him and saying like, cross. So maybe it's not a coincidence that 2 days later he told Kevin Schofield that he was going to resign the whip. Maybe it was Chris Watt did it.
I mean, I have a feeling, like I said at the top of the show, that Woodcock wanted to time it with the local elections to cause maximum possible damage. Multiple people have told me, by the way, that they call themselves the Kamikaze Group. There's a group of Labour MPs who call themselves the Kamikaze Group, but we're meant to take them, at their word, at face value, and of course, bad intentions or ill will. They call themselves the Kamikaze Group. Key point here, by the way, for any Labour MPs who are in that Kamikaze Group, Japan lost the Second World War. Why would you do that? And also, it was a really bad tactic. Pilots can do stuff. Humans are quite amazing technology, so to speak, right? Variable capital is always the most valuable part in the production process until very recently.
I never understood that tactic in war because it does take a long time to train a pilot.
Yeah, no, there's a bit of scholarship around how stupid it was, right? It came more out of the mental conceptions of, the sort of the military culture of the country rather than, this is actually really useful. Why would you want to imitate that? It was stupid.
But go for it if you want, John.
Yeah,
I've got no problem with them going for the kamikaze tactic.
But what do you think about this hypothesis? I think he wants to resign the whip, and it would be. I don't think it's coordinated. I don't think any of this is coordinated. I know there's stuff through WhatsApp probably and so on, but I don't think there's like a conspiracy to have another coup. What I think John Woodcock wants to do is resign the whip. Maybe one other person will follow. The local elections aren't as good as we'd like. Maybe one or two more will resign the whip. Then the momentum goes back with Theresa May. Brexit's next March. And I think their presumption is they can probably have another tilt after that, I think.
So you think he might join the Tories?
No. I think he'll resign the whip, and I think he'll want others. I think he'd want to be a pole of attraction where others can resign the whip. And you basically have 4 or 5 Labour MPs who aren't in the Labour Party, who probably don't vote with the Labour Party on very much.
Well, I suppose if you're the first, so if he's got an idea that a bunch of MPs are quite likely to resign at some point, then he can really set the agenda for what that means to resign the whip, right? So if you imagine there's this sort of semi-third party, which is all the Labour MPs who might resign the whip, he's going to be in TV studios for 2 years, sort of putting in the public consciousness what it means to be an ex-Labour MP. So people will be joining John Woodcock. So he gets to go there first.
Would you want to do that? The guy looks like, I don't know, it looks like he's trying to be Gavin Henson with that haircut.
Or in the break, we're saying Jedward, grown-up Jedward.
Can we get a picture of him up? I mean, it looks weird. No, his hair looks normal there. Can we do like John Woodcock? Oh, no, his hair looks good there, actually. Fuck.
You're like a bouffon.
Well, no, it's like a politician, right? I want to get the Jedward haircut up. Can we maybe Google John Woodcock Jedward? Jihadi Jedward.
For real.
Okay.
Fair enough, but I like him more after that picture.
Was that him?
That was him, wasn't it?
That's not him.
That was John Woodcock with a wig on.
Well, really?
Was that was John Woodcock, no?
I was presuming it's somebody else called John Woodcock.
No, that was John Woodcock, yeah, same face.
Really?
Yeah, same face, same guy.
Okay, he looks serious there. You know what I say? Generally, as a rule of thumb, this is going to sound so bad. Don't trust a grown man who doesn't shave.
You don't shave?
No, but I mean, he doesn't need to shave.
Oh, what, you mean he can't shave?
It's like he's a kid.
Aye.
Look, there's something weird going on. The guy he's had electrolysis.
Oh, he's got a similar one to me.
Do you think?
It doesn't go all the way around?
No,
but...
I think he's had electrolysis in his face, like Michael Schumacher.
No, look, he's got beard bits.
He's like, look,
it's just not a very full one.
He's going, I'm so busy being a lobbyist for BAE Systems. I haven't got time to shave in the morning. You know, if I spend £5,000 on electrolysis, that's 15 minutes a day I don't shave. That's 15 minutes more I can lobby for BAE Systems. I could be on the phone to Erdogan's, son-in-law. Imagine those 15 minutes, how much money I could make. We could talk about all the oil that they're, buying from ISIS, which funds terrorism. And by the way, I'm so good on national security and foreign policy.
No, so in this article, he was trying to stop Labour passing a motion about sort of censuring the Saudi-led operation in Yemen. So he's saying it's actually good that the government are backing Saudi Arabia in this bombing operation of Yemen, which is causing famine.
A million cases of cholera?
Yeah, I mean, because they're bombing like food deposits and they're bombing loads of civilian.
It's really. I mean, it's like Vietnam. It's like Vietnam. Okay, I mean, it's like Vietnam, which was obviously just huge collateral damage of civilians.
All right. Anything else?
And they're using British technology. More planes are built in Britain that go to the Saudi Air Force than the British Air Force. That's really bad. We should try and do something about it, like elect a government which won't allow that to happen. Maybe we could, take BAE Systems into public ownership and make it a civilian technology firm. Lots of clever engineers. They could do better stuff than build fighter jets that kill children. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, he's really in favour of the Saudi intervention in Yemen from the rest of this article.
Who is in favour of that?
And he's completely buying their line. So he's saying, if we took it, like what Britain are doing is we're helping them do really good targeted operations. So if we withdrew our support, they'd just be causing even more havoc. It's like they've been targeting food stocks. They've been targeting the port, which means they can't import any medicine. I don't think...
Like they've got the very precise technology.
Yeah, it's very precise, and they're targeting civilian infrastructure.
No, but they live in this world where they're like, oh, but if they didn't buy the leading British technology, they would just buy, let's be frank, Russian technology, which is just as good and a lot cheaper.
Is it just as good, Russian technology?
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know much about who does the best warplanes.
I mean, the very latest stuff, I mean, to a lesser extent, but the Sukhoi was the kind of like the standard Russian jet fighter, is a very, very good plane. I don't know, the latest Eurofighters, I don't know. But like... I mean, the Saudis have that many pilots who know what the fuck they're doing in a year. Like, these are top fucking planes. Sukhois are very effective. Russian jet technology. I mean, the Russian army's got really good kit, and they produce super stuff like very cheaply. And half the reason why the Saudis buy this stuff of us is because we're part of a broader global coalition, which effectively gives them sign-off to do what they like in the region. And we don't really intervene in domestic affairs.
It's part of the deal, right? I mean, I think that's why they spend... Because they don't... they don't go to that many wars. They don't need that many warplanes. I think part of it is because of that huge transfer of billions of dollars to American and British arms companies. They think they can sort of secure the support of the parliaments of those countries who want to protect jobs.
That's right.
So sort of like their buying of the planes is itself part of the relationship.
Exactly.
And it all works for John Woodcock.
You know what? He's going to be a very rich guy. He probably doesn't even mind if he gets like sacked somehow, or if he somehow wasn't an MP anymore, if something happened. He's going to walk straight into an incredibly lucrative job in Turkey or in Saudi Arabia, or for one of these people, or for BAE Systems. I mean, it's tragic. And he's building this address book with taxpayer money.
He might be one of the few MPs that, if they resign, could actually attract another 75k a year salary.
Yeah, I think so, right?
Because we always say that's the problem. That's why most of them will cling onto their jobs, because they're quite average people, and that's quite a high wage. And whereas with his connections and with that amount of money floating around, you get some backhanders in that industry as well, don't you?
I bet you do. I mean, I wouldn't know. We can't just make stuff up, Michael.
Well, you can if it's general. It's general. That's not about anyone in particular.
That's generalisation.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that the arms industry isn't guided by moral probity. No, generally.
And it's not the most transparent of industries either, is it?
No.
All right, are we done?
I think we're done. Have we got any more like last bits of business?
Nah. Come on, it's been a long week.
I'm tired. If you want to catch me on BBC this week, I'll be on there in like an hour and a half, 90 minutes.
It's been a year since Brexit.
It's been a year, fuck. I mean, that should be the leading story. I mean, that's the leading story everywhere but Novara Media, because we're just like cranks obsessed with very high political stories, insider stories.
Someone needs to.
Somebody needs to. And look, what we're talking about today, John Woodcock, and obviously the anti-Semitic stuff is hugely important. That's why we've done it. But yeah, if you look at the mainstream media, everybody's talking about the fact that Brexit's a year from now. BBC, for instance.
Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, you go to BBC.
I mean, it's an artificial news story. I mean, like, it's one of those ones where it's been 12 months, but that doesn't mean anything's happened. It's like 100 days of the president, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's kind of sick.
I think we can say
that's kind of sick.
I think we can say we don't respect arbitrary news stories based on dates.
You're kind of going back to your anarcho self.
We
don't need like time.
What the fuck's a year, man?
Yeah, get rid of the clocks.
Stuff just happens.
I won't go any further. When you say like, oh, don't tell me the time, I don't want to know the time, that kind of shit. We respect time here at Novara Media. That's why we're always half an hour late. Never more,
I
never
tried
less.
starting doing your Pomodoro thing.
All right.
25 minutes break, 25 minutes break.
What'd you think?
I've only managed 25 minutes.
Okay, how'd it go? You did a lot of work?
Yeah, no, I did quite a lot of work.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. But then I want a break, and then what can you do?
You measure, this is my top tip, you measure concentration rather than time, right? In 5 hours, for 4 hours, in 9 Pomodoros, you can do a day's work in 4 hours. When I mean a day, I mean like 8 hours. You can do 8 hours work in 4 hours because you're measuring concentration, not time. And time includes fucking Facebook, Gmail, going to the bathroom, getting a glass of water, you name it. Stop that. Deep work, 25-minute blocks. Try it.
All right, I'm going to do 8 tomorrow.
8's good. I mean, 8's the baseline. And then like, when you've done 8, we'll start with 4. Once you've done 4, literally walk away. Don't do it anymore. And you'll find that you can work up to 8 or 9 very quickly.
All right,
so
we're
I
done.
finished my PhD, yeah.
Yeah, you've got a good article about that. And fatty pasta.
Fatty pasta. Lost my. That's how I lost my cheekbones. They never came back.
All right, this was TyskySour. We'll be back on Monday.
Yes. Hey, we've got a guest.
We've got a guest. Are we revealing who the guest is?
I think we can reveal.
It's going to be John Landsman.
Oh my God.
So that is a big guest for us. Spread the news. That's going to be a great show.
Yeah, we're going to talk about. He's obviously up for election again for the NEC, for the Momentum NCG, the National Coordinating Group. Is that what it's called? Or?
National Coordinating Group. Yeah.
Obviously, he'll have things to say about the big story this week around anti-Semitism.
And he also has 40 years of insight on the ins and outs of the Labour left. I'm going to ask about Tony Benn.
This is what I can't wait. The real question for me is, who is John Landsman?
Who is John Landsman?
Maybe Novara should do like a biopic of John Landsman with an actor. Maybe that could be like our first extended thing.
He's already been represented
mate, it's sick.
in a drama.
Yeah, it's sick. And it was like quite a big actor as well.
Was it? Who played him? Anyway, fuck it. We're over. Tune in on Monday. It's going to be us and John Landsman. It's going to be great.
Who's going to play John Woodcock in the film of Corbyn? Which is clearly going to happen at some point. Who will play John Woodcock?
Jedward when they've grown up.
Hey, that's true.
Because it will be the time.
But which one?
The time scale will
Which
be okay.
one?
You could have a interesting sort of like sci-fi element where there's sort of like good John Woodcock and bad John Woodcock, and they're sort of like arguing with each other.
Or you could have like one of the Jedward guys could do the Buffon thing, and the other one could just have the kind of the Gavin Henson Shed 7 haircut.
They'll need a job by then as well. Perfect.
Well, they won't be working anymore, so you know.
All right, we're done. Sorted. See you on Monday. Good night.
Bye.